Good evening, parents. Sorry I'm not here. If you could tell by my voice, I'm a bit under the weather today. I did still want to get you this information if you'd like it. So I'll kind of go through what I was going to be talking about tonight anyway. All right. Hello. I'm Josh Feldsher. Teach AP Environmental Science. I also teach freshman biology. Actually, I have had several of your students before. But I'll go ahead and jump right in here. So before I even get into the nitty gritty of this class, I want to talk a little bit about myself, just give you a little bit of background about who I am, who's teaching your students all the time. This is my 10th year at GHS. I've been teaching only exclusively at GHS for my career. Love it here. Got no plans on leaving anytime soon. This is now my 4th year teaching AP Environmental Science. Also love teaching this class. This has been just kind of renewed a lot of my love for teaching is teaching seniors, teaching about the environment. I got a big passion for what we're talking about in this class. Grew up in Laverne and Claremont. So a lot of my adolescent years in Laverne, ended up moving to Claremont when I was in high school. I went to Damien High School, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. That's where I got my bachelor's degree in marine biology. So I got a background more in like the wildlife side of biology, which I guess ties in a lot to environmental science. And I do tie in, especially when we talk about oceans, ocean currents, oceanography and ecosystems in the oceans. I do bring in as many of those experiences that I had from my degree. I'll try and bring in those experiences as examples to try and, I guess, ground a lot of the lessons that we're talking about. Also, University of Laverne, that's where I got my teaching credential and my master's degree, so it's nice to be done with school myself. Just to give you a bit of a background on what to expect going forward. So this is the data that I got for my students last year, all right? So my passage rate, nearing that 90%, so 89.1%. I only had a total of 6 students not pass the exam. I honestly, more 3s than I would even like to see. I want to see these 4s and 5s be much higher. But if I'm getting nearly 90% passage rates for seniors, now, again, I don't want to say this about any of your students, and I hope that none of them are going to reach this point. But senioritis is a real thing. And by the end of the year, I've got a group of kids that they just stop caring about school altogether. So I will do everything I can. And if a student even has a molecule of motivation left, I will get them to pass this exam. I will make sure they have all the tools that they need, all the knowledge they need to be able to pass this exam. So again, I'm pretty proud of this passage rate, but I always want to be pushing towards that 100% passage rate, get them all there, right? Save you guys a little bit of money if they're going to college, right? Anyways, so classroom info, all right? We're going to start daily notes. Those are going to be done at home. So the way that I do this is I will post them on Canvas the day before, the class period before they have me, and I want them to do them at home, get them submitted to me before the next class. The idea behind this is they're front-loading that information before I've had time to go over it with them, so they can kind of like have an idea of what we're talking about, and we're not spending half the class period just going over notes. So I will still go over them. I will review them during the next class period, but I only spend maybe 15 to 20 minutes. If we spend 45 minutes because we're having big discussions and there are a lot of questions about notes, that's valuable time. But if we're spending 45 minutes or an hour in class just writing notes, I don't want to waste that time because, again, the time is valuable for this class. We only have a finite amount of time until we get to that AP exam, right? So daily notes are done at home. We review them in class the next day. I spend a little bit of time at the beginning, but I want to spend more of that time on labs and everything that we're going to be doing the rest of the class. So the notebooks that they have are for notes and for labs. It's not anything that I have particular. I'm not ever collecting that. All of their work, all of their notes, all of their labs, almost everything that they're going to turn into me is going to be done through Canvas. So they will handwrite the notes in their notebook, and then they take a picture of them and submit them to me on Canvas. The reason I want them handwriting them is just it's too easy to copy and paste things off of slides. The handwritten notes is kind of an important piece just to make sure that they're spending the time with it, that they're actually getting the information that they need to. Grade distribution. This is an AP class, and we are ultimately going towards that AP exam at the end of the year. So I do have a pretty heavy weight on the tests that we have in this class, all right? 50% is going to be from everything that we're doing in class, the classwork, homework, and labs, and the other 50% is going to be from unit exams and larger projects. And that is going to include the semester final. We'll only have one in the first semester, second semester. Seniors are graduated before we even have finals week, so we won't have a final second semester. But those exams all go into 50%. First semester, I am going to curve them slightly. Second semester, as we ramp up closer to the AP exam and as I kind of like build up try and push away all of that senioritis, I am going to not naturally curve all of those exams. So grades wise, as long as they're staying on top of it and as long as they're preparing for those tests, they should do well enough on those. They're going to be College Board level questions. But again, I'll make sure that they get the resources they need to study for and prepare for those exams as well. Other classroom info. Roughly 25 to 50% of class time is going to be spent on labs and lab activities. And I say that across like a given week. So again, I don't want to be spending all of the time just doing lecture notes and giving them lecture information. I want to try and minimize that and spend more time on application activities so that we can actually get our hands dirty and understand what exactly was going on in those lecture notes, right? So that's going to make up roughly about half of the time we're in class is going to be spent doing some sort of labs or lab activities. Devices. We do everything on the laptops, the Chromebooks that they have. They need to make sure that they have those charged, ready to go, or at least have their charger on them to be able to use them, because we're doing notes there. All the activities, everything they're submitting to me is going to be through Canvas. So the labs, the data analysis, all of that's going to be through the laptops as well. So they do need to have those daily and have those ready to go. Haven't had any issues with that yet this year. Just want to bring that up. Phones. Even for seniors, I am implementing the school's new phone policy. I've got this is where I would point to the side of my wall. I've got the phone tree or the pockets with where all the phones go. They've had no problems with this, but bringing them in, putting them into their numbered slots at the beginning of the class period. There will be times when I'll let them use them for specific reasons, but general rule, they're keeping them up there for the entire class period. Daily warm-up quizzes. So I do quizzes, and this is going to go into the classwork section of their grade, but these are warm-up quizzes they're going to have every day, are going to be a set of 3 multiple-choice College Board level AP questions, and that's just to get them in the mindset. I want to expose them to as many of those multiple-choice questions. The full exam is 80 multiple-choice questions, 3 free response questions. In the warm-ups, I'm going to expose them to plenty of multiple choice. I'll be reviewing those. I go over them. I make sure they understand why they got it wrong or what the correct answer was, what it was. Again, want to get them in the mindset of how do you look at these questions? How do you answer these questions and make sure that you're getting the answer that the College Board is looking for, right? And then for free response questions, as a part of all of the lecture notes, at the very end, I'm going to have a small portion of a free response question, just like an open-ended short answer question. And that's going to, again, try and get them enough exposure so that nothing is catching them off guard when they actually take the full exam. Again, I want to make sure that they are feeling fully prepared for that. The guest speakers. I'm going to try this year, especially with the Department of Water in Glendora. I want to try and get in contact with them as we get into really the units that we have that apply. I want to try and get as many people in the field that actually are working in any of these industries in the classroom as possible. So I'm trying to get contacts with city and local areas around to bring in guest speakers whenever it's available and it's applicable to one of the topics that we're talking about. The actual class itself, the units of study. So we've got 9 total units in this class. We'll start out with the biology stuff, so ecosystems and biodiversity. Populations, so we'll talk about population distributions, why you have population growth and population decline among humans or other species. Earth systems and resources, land and water use. This is going to be a lot more of the earth science thing, so we'll be talking about wind patterns, plate tectonics, earthquakes, a lot of that stuff. Land and water use, Unit 5 is actually a lot more about we get into agriculture. We'll talk about farming. We'll talk about like the proper ways, the different methods that industries will use water when they're growing crops and stuff like that. Energy resources and consumption. We talked about different electricity resources, atmospheric and aquatic terrestrial pollutions, as you would kind of expect from an environmental science class, and then global climate change. The percentages that I have in these parentheses, these are the expected percentages on how many of the questions on the AP exam would come from that unit. So I try and ramp this up. Again, there's a little bit of a different here with the pollution, but I try and ramp this up where the most important information that they're going to need to know, because it makes up nearly a fifth of the exam, is what we're covering closest to the exam. So Unit 9 is going to be the last unit that we cover, because that's going to be the most heavy content unit that you're going to need to see on that exam. Daily schedule. Start with the warm-up questions. We review the notes and have a class discussion on those notes, answer any questions that students may have. We'll go over those practice free response questions. Sometimes, actually, the activities, some days, instead of labs, I will have full 1, 2, or 3 free response questions. We'll do like a full practice exam in the class some days. Again, I want to make sure they're feeling as exposed to the multiple choice, as exposed to those free response questions, know the information they need to know, but also know how to apply that when they're actually taking the full exam. So that'll be in there as well. And then we'll also do those labs, application activities. Pretty much every day that we have in the class is going to have some sort of, activity that's going to be related to what we covered in the notes that day. Now, just a couple things that we're looking forward to in the rest of this class. Bottle Ecosystems project. I just introduced this yesterday. This is kind of like a cool overarching project that we're going to be doing for the next month, where I have these 2-liter bottles. They're going to take multi-chambers, an aquatic chamber, a terrestrial chamber. They're going to put in different organisms, crickets and pill bugs and fish and aquatic snails. And the idea behind this is I want them to do research. So the next 2 weeks, they're going to be doing research on what species they want to include as a part of their bottles and how they are going to get those organisms to survive. So we're not putting any vertebrates, we're not putting any mice, we're not putting any frogs or anything like here. Again, I don't want to, we're not trying to kill things, but I want them to try and figure out what does it take for an ecosystem to survive in this microscopic terrarium, right? In about a week and a half, we're going to seal up these projects, and they're going to have these 2 separate chambers that are integrated, and we're going to keep them sealed for 2 full weeks. So they're not going to be able to open them, they're not going to be able to refeed them. So they need to add all of the things that are necessary for survivability in before they actually seal off those bottles. So that's part of the research project. We're going to be doing observations of that over the next month. We'll deconstruct them and hopefully have a lot of those organisms are going to survive through that. So that's going to be a cool project that's coming up for the next month or so. Cemetery populations data. This is something that I do. It's actually right around Halloween, so it's kind of cool that we do the cemetery. But I look at different tombstones from different locations around the U.S., and we look at the populations of males versus females in certain locations, certain areas. Life expectancies based off of that. So we're basically doing a lot of data crunching, looking at the lifetimes of these different peoples around different locations around the U.S. Solar Insolation Lab. This is looking at like the angle of the sunlight as it's hitting. So like part of the reason why it is especially cold in near the polar regions is not only the fact that you get less sunlight, you also get weaker sunlight because the angle of the sun is different than compared to the right at the equator. So we're going to be doing a cool lab where we're using flashlights to see how the angle of the light changes depending on how you're distributing it on Earth. Sustainable farm design project. I will have students design a farm. Now there are parameters around this. I'm going to limit what exactly they can include in it, but they're basically going to design a farm and try and make it as sustainable as possible. They've got either maximize the amount of people it is feeding, maximize or minimize the ultimate overall cost, or maximize minimize the environmental impact that it's going to have. So they have different parameters they can try and work with on that, and we're going to end up voting on what has the best farm design after the students present those. And then ecological footprints and home energy audit. I want them to see how their own lifestyle is going to have an effect on the environment. So some of the lessons that we're going to be talking about, these ecological footprints, is the idea that your individual footprint is going to be different than someone on the other side of the world, in a different part of the country, maybe in a different part of California. So I want to start thinking about like, how are we individually affecting the environment, as well as how is humankind affecting the environment as well, right? So that's just, again, a couple of the more interesting labs that we have upcoming as well. That was about all I have for you for today. This is my email, jfeldsher@glendora.k12.ca.us. That is the best way to reach me if you ever have questions, and especially, I know I was not there tonight, apologies for that, but please, if you have questions about anything that I had on this video, please don't hesitate to email me. You can reach out to me through phone. I will get back to you much quicker by email. I much prefer if you would reach out by email. I'll get back to you very quickly that way. Well, I hope you have a nice night. Thank you. And please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye.